Bears' second priority of survival is rescue. This doesn't necessarily mean somebody's coming to get us, it may mean that we need to self-rescue. Running around in the wilderness without knowing where you're going could just serve to worsen your situation. So one key skill to have in your toolbox is to be able to naturally navigate. If you know where to look, there are a myriad of navigational clues all around us. So let's explore some of these methods for naturally navigating right now. Where possible, I like to use deciduous trees, freestanding deciduous trees that is, like this one behind me. It's a really, really clear example pointing south. If you can see on this side of the tree, all the branches are reaching over this way. And on this side, they're all reaching upwards. And if this was in bloom at the moment with the leaves all over it, you'd see there's more leaves on this side than there are on that side. And that'll give us a bit of a clue as to which way it's facing. Now we know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but it does so on a southern side of the sky. So it would make sense that plants, as we know, using phototropism, will naturally gravitate towards that side. They'll want to get as much sun exposure as possible. So if I'm a tree, all the branches on the southern side are going to reach out like this, all the branches on the northern side are going to reach up and over like this, and I'll be pointing in a southerly direction. Moss is something that we get asked about all the time, and it's not as simple as people think. Let's use this tree as an example. So the rule is moss grows on the north side because moss likes shade and it likes damp. But really with trees, there's a lot of damp down the bottom, so you should really disregard the bottom metre or so and really look up to the length of the tree. Now this is a really, really good example, but you should really only use freestanding trees such as this one. So as you can see on this side of the tree, there's a majority of moss. As we come around to this side, it's much more lichen and not as much moss. This is a really, really good example here of moss growing on the northern side of the tree and the more growth of the tree on the southern side. So one constant in the natural world is the path of the sun. Rises in the east, sets in the west, and does so on the southern sky in the northern hemisphere, in the northern side and the southern hemisphere. What we can do, as long as you've got an analog watch, is you can use the sun to naturally navigate and find your cardinal points, as long as it's got the correct time on it. So what you want to do is you want to find the hour hand on the watch and point that at the sun. Then what you want to do is bisect the line between the 12 o'clock and the hour hand. You cut that in half and that will point you south. This is accurate for the northern hemisphere. Now if you're in the southern hemisphere, what you need to do is you point the 12 o'clock at the sun, bisect the line between the hour hand and the 12 o'clock, and that's going to give you north. You have to take into account though daylight savings and other such time changes as well. But that's the watch method. It's a really, really quick and easy one to do, and you can keep doing it as you're on your self-rescue path. If you don't have the correct time, but you do have the sun shining, what you can do is use what we call the stick method. Now for this, what you want to do is grab yourself a nice long straight stick with a nice clean end on it. You jam that into the ground, like so, nice and straight in the ground. What that's going to do is that's going to cast a shadow down onto the floor. And you're going to find out, obviously the sun's not shining too much today, so I'm struggling for a bit of shadow, but you're going to find out where the end of that shadow lies, and you're going to mark that end with a stick, like so. And then you're going to wait for as long as you can really. Maybe you're going to wait for half an hour would be more accurate. And you're going to mark the end of the shadow again, because that shadow is going to move. It's either going to elongate or it's going to shorten, but it's definitely going to move along. Okay, so you mark that second point. And if you want to be really accurate, you wait another half an hour, another hour if you can, and mark a third stick. Okay. And what you've got is you'll find it has this nice straight line across here. And this will be our east-west line. The key thing to remember here is left is first, okay? So your left foot goes where the first stick is, your right foot goes where the second stick is, and you'll be facing north, and that's in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, you just flip it. So you'll be facing south in this case. One thing to do now is lay this stick down, okay? Grab your stick, lay it down, and then you know where your east-west line is. You put this stick perpendicular to it, and it gives you, I know that in the northern hemisphere now, that's north, south, that's east, and that's west, okay? And if you are going off on a self-rescue journey and you think someone might be coming to look for you, one thing you can do is if I'm heading off north, I can leave a big arrow marker before I go. So there's just a few ways that we can naturally navigate out in the wild. That little bit of information could save you so much time on your self-rescue journey. And remember, every second counts.